This Lost Post is going to take a little bit of explaining. Back at London MCM Comic Con last October, we got talking to Accent UK Comics. We even did an interview with them. If you are a follower of the YouTube channel, which you should be, linked to the interview somewhere. After the interview, he gave us some comic books to do a review on and talk about. And I did. And I read them, and it got delayed as other videos came along, and so it got pushed down the schedule, and nothing got recorded until MCM Telford, and it was meant to get released and edited with the other MCM Midlands stuff, but it got delayed again, and delayed even more, and so it never got released with the other MCM Midlands content. The stuff you're about to see was stuff I recorded while I was in Telford covering the MCM Midlands stuff with Chris. The reason why it looks a lot different and a lot different quality to the usual stuff is it was essentially recorded out of office. But in an attempt to finally get this video out 6 months after he actually gave us the comic books, here is the Lost Post for our review of some of the comics made by Accent UK Comics. The Troll is written by Martin Flink. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, because he's Danish. And you can certainly see the Danish influences. The troll that is named on the cover is a troll in the more Scandinavian type. And by that I mean mountainous, giant troll, not Tolkien bumbling troll. The entire comic is in colour, and it sort of suits it well, as the entire comic goes through without any dialogue. It's partly inspired by Martin's son, who recounted a tale of when he went through the forests and met a troll, apparently. The art style works very well in an almost sketch-like manner, but still relatively detailed. The best thing I can liken it to is a short movie. It is all-encompassing, all contained in one book, and it is all very artfully directed and artfully made. So if you're interested in a artistically made, non-dialogue story, then this is certainly one to get. While very brief, it is very colourful, and it is very much worth it if you like that style. Both of the comics are presented as two separate stories by two different writers, by two different artists. That makes the whole thing rather intriguing, as there's almost a third story that only lasts a page or two that interconnects them both. The name Stevensons Robot comes from the eponymous robot right on the cover. It's a robot made and designed by Robert Louis Stevenson, the steam engineer of the Victorian era. It's very much set in an alternate reality where Stevenson managed to create a steam-powered automaton. Stevenson's Robot, in both issues, has the first story, and the first story is drawn in a very Americanized psychedelia fashion. This mainly comes down to one of the characters who gets transferred to many of the other stories, especially in the second issue. The Stevensons Robot story of both issues are a story of literal freaks on the run, trying to run away from the Nazis. The second story of the first issue starts with the bridging aliens, as I've started to consider them, that has in some of the design references to the psychedelia, while beginning and acting as the introduction to the next story, which is a story of the Puzzle Girl, the escape of the Puzzle Girl, which is very much drawn in a very gothic fashion. While the first issue is an introduction to the characters, the second issue is very much the introduction to the intrigue. While the first story continues to be freaks on the run from the Nazis, it delves a lot deeper into the origins of the Stevensons Robot character. But the second story this time, after the bridging aliens have their introduction, is a continuation of the second story from the first, but it puts it into a time zone, and that time zone is Victorian London. What makes it even more intriguing is that the star of the second story is a character from the Freaks Running Away from the Nazis story. The continuity of the stories is what adds the intrigue, because there is a past, a future, and then a past behind the past. The Stevensons Robot series is a 7-issue series, and I highly recommend going out and getting these issues. The second selection we were given was Western Noir, a literal Western Noir story. The first issue opens with the series protagonist Joshua Black being hired by an unknown woman to hunt down a vagrant, but while he does go off and complete this task, it turns out that the vagrant was a monster hunter. And when I say monster hunter, I mean the hunter of ghouls, vampires, demons, and other literal monsters. This ends up coming to a keep what you kill plot line where Joshua is end up hired by the Vagrant's former employers to hunt monsters. The first issue is very much the introduction to Joshua Black, while very slightly sprinkling some of the backstory, adds more intrigue into actually how and why even the woman hired him to do what he did and why he does what he does. The second issue sees Joshua Black fighting against his first monsters, and his first monsters are Killer Croc style man crocs. The one thing that this issue shows is how brutal Joshua can actually be, trapping and mutilating the crocodiles, and the priestess who created them just... One of the main subtexts that both of the comics have is vision and seeing monsters when you want to see monsters and having monsters fight monsters. But then an added layer to that is the use of the goggles, because the only way to see the monsters are through the goggles, and so it adds the idea that you are seeing monsters when you want to see monsters, and are there really any monsters? Currently there are more issues out of the series, and if you are interested in a very Western, very supernatural style series, then this is certainly the one to get. But another more cheaper option may be to get the first 4-issue anthology, which is also out on sale now. Western Noir is a series that certainly has plans of where to go, and those plans could be fairly brutal, not just for the monsters Joshua is meant to fight, but also for Joshua himself. That's it for the comic books. That's the first time we've actually done a video on comic books. If you want to send us comic books, then we can think of something. We'll have to think of something. Otherwise, subscribe to the YouTube channel. As we're doing more stuff, press the button somewhere on screen or the big red button down below, and go to thetorchentertainmentguide.com for more stuff, maybe more comic book stuff.